Hi, I'm Harris Atkins, CEO Americas at Indicia Worldwide. Today, we're fortunate enough to be talking with Nil Patel, who is our Global Data and Analytics Director. It's good to be talking with you. Consumers are currently experiencing so much change, and with that, it seems like brands are realizing just how important data can be in providing insight. Data makes such a difference in a brand's ability to engage with customers. Sometimes I wonder if brands are very clear on how they should apply that data.
Absolutely. I mean, data is a really ambiguous term, and I think data in itself doesn't really mean anything. Data, we need to translate data into information that then gets translated into insights, and it's those insights that really drive, business performance. And so that's what we mean. We mean actually taking data, distilling it into information, and using that to drive insights that drive the business KPIs. So what do we mean by intelligent decisions? We're using data to drive decisions that ultimately help consumers engage with brands better. And I think that's the really important thing here. We're using data to drive a consumer experience that differentiates the brands that we work with.
That's awesome. But the brands we're talking about are becoming so overwhelmed with huge amounts of data. How exactly can we support them? I would imagine that we may need to step in and make sense of it, organize it in a way that can help drive growth.
Absolutely. And I think, in this age of big data, as it were, we have more and more data points. Every application, every business interaction, we are capturing vast amounts of data. And one of the biggest challenges for all organizations is actually, what do we do with this data? We know that it's important. We know that it's, a really big business asset. But sitting there in cold storage doesn't really translate into business value. And I think one of the things that we can do is help business focus on how they're going to use that data to drive that business performance. And I think there's a couple of parts to this. So we help businesses really understand how they can use their data to drive their objectives. And I think that's the really important thing. I think when we engage with businesses, we really immerse ourselves in their businesses so we can understand, what their critical business objectives are, what KPIs they should be focusing on, what tactics they can use to help engage customers better. And I think with this knowledge of how a business operates and how what's really important for them, we can start shaping what we need to do with that data. And I think there are a couple of things here that we can bring to the table to really help businesses focus on their data asset. I think the first problem when it comes to data is how do we, the vast amounts of data, how do we process it? How do we store it so we can utilize it? And I think it's, like I said, it's a multi-stage process, and that's the first thing. But the second thing is also, how do we work with the business so they understand the intrinsic link between their objectives, their KPIs, and data? And I think once we establish that link, it makes it so much easier for organizations and everyone in the business to start utilizing data to drive those business objectives.
So it sounds like the first thing we can do for our clients is innovatively manage the data. Then the goal would be to apply that data in a way that compels customers to do something. That's how we start redefining the customer experience. Help me explain to our audience what that looks like.
Absolutely. I think, let me start with customer experience and consumer experience and why it's so important. And I think if we look at history and look at the past and look at businesses that are successful, the successful businesses are the ones that are focused on good consumer experience. And we know that consumer experience will lead to revenue. And ultimately, if a business run well, that revenue will convert into profitability. And really, they are the two success factors for any successful organization. It is customer experience and profitability. So consumer experience is the single most important thing for organizations to focus on. And it's all areas of the business that should be contributing to a successful consumer experience. Whether you're, in the retail shop, whether you're running the supply chain, or whether you're in the data analytics department. We use our experience in data and our proprietary platforms to help leverage customer data to drive that consumer experience. And we have a range of products that really center around three things: consumer intelligence, moment mapping, and intuitive design. And the combination of these three data pillars, as it were, really allow brands to leverage their data to drive a better consumer experience. So what we're talking about here is to create that almost Spotify or Netflix experience across a physical, digital, and these days augmented retail experience. These platforms have great appeal because they're effortless to use and they give that illusion that these brands really know you quite intimately. And that really does provide a unique experience for consumers. And we over here at Indicia really exist to help businesses create this user experience through our three pillars of technology, creative, and data.
Nil, when you're talking about consumer intelligence or moment mapping, how do we define those terms specifically for our listeners?
To answer that, I think I want to take a little step back and I want to talk about the challenges that we're trying to solve for the brands that we work with. And the first challenge is that businesses need to understand who their consumers are. And I don't think businesses or all businesses have access to the relevant data to make those decisions around their consumers because they just don't have that insight into who their consumers are, which ultimately makes it very difficult for them to tailor their brands and services around them.
So once they're aware of that challenge, they need to solve for it.
And so the second problem is then, actually, now I know who my customer is, but what I need to know is why and how are they using the products and services that we've enabled for them. Intrinsically, what's the right point in time that a consumer engages with us? What channels are they engaging with us on? How are they using our digital properties? How are they using our retail footprint? And these are all insights that can help brands actually better leverage their retail and digital footprints and provide a better experience to their consumers.
Nil, I got to be honest, that sounds like a lot to digest. My assumption is that brands now need to know how to navigate all of that information.
Good question. And that is the third problem that we're trying to solve here. You have the insights, you know who your consumer is, you know how they're using your products, services, you know how they're engaging with your brand. But how do you operationalize that into a better and unique consumer experience? And that is the third problem we're solving. By putting consumer intelligence and moment mapping together, we create an intuitive design using machine learning, AI technologies that we can embed into your core platforms and surface them wherever you want to enhance that consumer experience.
It's putting all those pieces together that's really powerful for brands, right? It's in that transition and those informed decisions where we can really step in and give them the support they need to become more effective and more efficient.
Absolutely, absolutely. Those three components are all vital to providing a good consumer experience.
Nil, we've referenced consumer intelligence a couple of times. How would you explain how we use that intelligence to help brands solve their problems?
One of the features, or one of the products within that particular product pillar, is something we call opportunity mapping. We're able to make it commercially impactful in two different ways. Number one is the usual way in which we've got the deep behavioral insight around a consumer, but the second element is that we're actually able to map that across the UK, so we can start to understand where your growth segments are, where they live, how they're behaving, how they're different in different regions, which allows us to tailor your marketing strategy, your product location strategy, because you start to understand in this particular region, I've got an over-index of this particular segment, and in another region, I've got an over-index of another type of segment. And further to that, we're actually able to start to identify growth segments. And along with that, we're able to identify the probability of these growth segments actually converting. So when we're looking at how do we need to spend our marketing budget or our product budget, and who do we need to focus that on, we've got the information there to tell us actually this segment, statistically speaking, is the one that is most likely to convert. So actually I should be focusing my budget on these customers.
That's extremely powerful information for a global brand to have that kind of knowledge about what's happening in their markets. I know we've had great success with global brands like Nissan and Adidas in helping them understand their consumers. I would imagine it's just as beneficial for targeting in regional markets as well.
Absolutely. I think it's an absolute game changer for customer segmentation because it translates that segmentation into something actionable. And that is, where most brands fail. they'll build a segmentation, but they won't know how to activate it.
No, I'm thinking about what we've been through over the past 18 plus months. The COVID pandemic changed the game and the marketing strategies that come with that. There's been such extraordinary growth in e-commerce and other online platforms of people being at home, but now people are going back to brick and mortar environments. Brands need to redefine that customer experience.
Absolutely. And one of the things with physical retail, and they've had a really tough time. They're continuing to have a tough time, and we have seen a difference in the way consumers are using high streets. And there are a number of different ways we can help brands leverage their retail footprint. Number one, we can help them understand if their physical location is the right one and is attracting the right type of customer. We can help them create digital campaigns that focus on bringing consumers back into store if that's the right thing. We can start to understand what type of product mix that brands need to put in the store. Like, how are consumers now shopping online, and what are they buying online, and what are they going in store for? And let's start focusing our product mix around those store missions a bit more. And ultimately, some retailers may be looking at where they can start growing their retail footprint, and where maybe, where the traditional high street might not have been a good location. They need to start thinking about alternative locations. It might be better for them to be in a mall location versus the high street. And we have got hundreds of data points and lots of different products that can help brands and map where they need to be focused on the consumers, their needs, and how they are using that physical retail footprint.
No, I know for clients like Stanley Black & Decker and others, we are creating new interactive retail experiences. Can you highlight a few of the things that we're doing for brands to improve the in-store customer experience?
There are lots of things we can do in store. I mentioned a couple earlier around making sure we've got the right product. We've got to make sure we've got the right store layout. One of our big product offerings is something we call Next Gen POSM. And what this is, it's a platform that allows brands to understand the impact of what they're doing in store, and specifically the impact of the POSM material that they are surfacing in store. And let me just talk a little bit about why that's important and why this is actually connected to the wider consumer experience. Because what we surface in store is actually a communications channel for consumers, and it should tie in to your rest of your digital experience, what you're sending consumers in email, and what you're doing on your above-the-line marketing. And these traditional marketing channels, they're really well established. We've understood how to determine return on investment, and we've understood how to test creative content in those channels. What we've not done is understood, or what we haven't done up until now, is understood how we do that in the physical retail location. Now, our Next Gen POSM product allows you to do exactly that. It allows you to optimize campaigns in the same way that we've been doing on other marketing channels for years and years. And it allows you to effectively understand the return on investment that you get from your POSM material. Ultimately, what this allows you to do is optimize, the location of POSM, the design of POSM, what products might work best with what POSM, the offers that you need to put in there. And also, ultimately, you can start to really refine the designs of POSM to suit the local demographic needs of consumers. And all of this will effectively lead to an improved return on investment in your POSM spend.
Not only does the consumer benefit from the improved experience, but brands can actually realize savings as a result of their investment.
Absolutely, and everyone benefits here. The consumer's getting a better experience, and the brand is effectively improving the return on investment of their POSM, and they're getting additional sales and driving savings at the same time.
Nil, thank you for giving us such a clear understanding of the connection between data and how we leverage it to help brands create an improved consumer experience. Recognizing the world is in a different place, brands need to be able to pivot from a pre-COVID marketplace to a new post-pandemic one. I think our innovative approach to tying data to insights is another way we can do more to help brands improve their customer experience and bring new value.